The Hangar Z podcast welcomes pilot Scott Hines and TFO Alex Marti of the Fort Worth Police Department. This TFO training and how it's evolved with technology. Give me your spiel on that, Alex. How do you feel about that?
It's made leaps and bounds. So starting out, having to learn how to do it with a MapSco is a pain. And then, of course, you get into the newer systems from there where we could run the camera with a split screen with a moving map on the split screen, but not quite sure where the camera's looking, but you got to know where it's looking on the map to be able to call it, to where you have map overlays, and the map overlays are huge, but you need to have another way to do it in case it fails. You got to know how to bring up those maps still and be able to do everything that you can to give accurate information to the guys on the ground.
On these episodes, Jack Schonely and John Gray were joined by pilot Scott Hines and Tactical Flight Officer Alex Marti from the Fort Worth Police Department Aviation Unit. Scott brings a deep aviation background as an Army aviator who flew the OH-58D Kiowa, completing 2 combat tours in Iraq before later transitioning to Black Hawks with the Guard and flying medevac for air methods. That experience ultimately led him to Fort Worth PD. Alex Marti is also an Army veteran who joined the Fort Worth Police Department and worked his way into aviation, first serving as a reserve TFO before earning a full-time position in the unit. Together, we dig into changing the culture within the aviation unit, the challenges and wins of developing and formalizing a tactical flight officer program, operating the Bell 505 Jet Ranger X, and share impactful stories flying over Fort Worth. Along the way, we also take a deep dive into the OH-58D Kiowa, its capabilities, and why it left such a lasting impression on those who flew it. Please take a moment to like and subscribe to the Hangar Z podcast. We appreciate your support. Thank you to our sponsors, Rotorcraft Support Incorporated, Traca Systems, and Summit Aviation.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like you're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, threw the shotgun, threw something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and partnered with Vertical Valor Magazine. I'm your host, Jack Schonely. With me today on the Hangar Z is the creator of the Hangar Z podcast, John Gray. John, how are you today?
Commander Schonely. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
Be back to recording. This is our first recording of the year, and it's an honor to sit here with the folks that we're going to record with from Fort Worth.
It is.
I've been to Texas a bunch of times and never had a chance to visit their hangar, but we kind of get a virtual visit this time, which would be cool.
That's right. We do get a virtual visit that for those of you that are watching on YouTube, you can see that our guests, Alex and Scott, are in their hangar with their beautiful Bell 505 in the background, which is really cool. We told them prior to pressing record button that the only thing better would be that John and I are sitting in that hangar with them. But we love this. We love the hangar stuff where we get a good background. We had Sonoma did a great job a while back, and the UE vets did a great job with canine torque, running around the hangar. So this is really cool. We're really looking forward to our conversation with Fort Worth Police Air Support Unit. And our guests today are pilot Scott Hines and TFO Alex Marti. Scott, Alex, welcome to the Hangar Z podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yep, happy to be here.
Man, we're glad to have you guys. This is great. Like John said, all the Texas agencies are working. They're doing great work. We hear about it, see it regularly, and we're thrilled that we're going to get to chat with you guys for a little while and learn more about you and learn more about your unit. And I thought I'd start by just kind of covering a very unique thing, which is, and either of you can kind of run with this, but Fort Worth Police Air Support was the first use of rotorcraft in Texas law enforcement. Why don't you grab that reins there? Tell us about that.
Do you want to direct it?
Oh, yeah, that's correct. Yeah, Fort Worth was the first rotorcraft, our first agency to use helicopters, started in 1968 with Bell 47s. And initially, they actually hired or used Bell pilots. And eventually, they realized that that was not a good way to go forward. So they started getting civilian pilots that they paid on their own. And we used Bell 47s for a good while, eventually transitioned to Bell 206s, I think in the 70s, the late 70s, early 80s. And we had the 206s until just recently when we got the first Bell 505 in 2020. And then we recently acquired this one behind me here in just last year and got it fully outfitted and just came in service a couple months ago. So
wow,
now we're doing 505s.
That's great. What a great progression. And it's no coincidence that Bell pilots were were some of the first pilots. Not all of our listeners, believe it or not, guys, not all of our listeners are aviation people. We have got cops listening. We have all sorts of people that listen. And for those that don't know, Bell Helicopter is in Texas and happens to be right up the street in Fort Worth, right? So Bell has been a big part of that region in Texas for a long, long time and still are. And so it's no coincidence that it was Bell products and Bell pilots helping you guys out. 505 looks great. We're going to talk about that helicopter as we move through the podcast. I mean, there's a lot to learn about it, and we're looking forward to that. But that's a great way to get started. Very cool. 1968, and plugging away, doing great work. So before we get into the helicopter and a little bit more about the unit, let's learn a little bit more about you guys. And we'll start with you, Alex.
Yeah.
Let's tell us about where'd you grow up, early aviation influences and law enforcement influences that got you to where you're sitting right now in that hangar.
Yeah, so I grew up primarily in Florida and then moved to Texas after my parents got divorced and finished from here and then went to the Army from here. But my earliest aviation influence was probably my dad. All growing up, ever since I was little, we've had planes growing up. So going on vacation, anytime we go on vacation, we flew in planes going anywhere. And it started out with a Mooney to Bonanza to Barons to 414s, 421s, up to King Airs and then Citations. So I've been around aviation pretty much my whole life.
Wow. That's cool.
That's wild. I think of it as a kid, mom's like, all right, get your stuff, throw it in the car, let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
Wasn't, hey, get your stuff and put it in the airplane. We're going to go fly somewhere. How cool is that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a great experience growing up like that.
That was a great list of aircraft too. I mean, what a wide variety. That is cool. So at what point did you hop up front and touch those controls? Do you remember doing that, or was
most of the time when I was little, like when I was probably 8 or 9 was when my dad started putting me in the front with him. Yeah. And then I'd pretty much sit in the co-pilot seat every time we flew somewhere.
Oh, man. Wow. That obviously must have been a thrill. Do you remember those times vividly?
Not all of them, but some of them are definitely more memorable than others.
Sure. Like the time you flew him into a thunderstorm or something, right?
Yeah, no.
Wow, that is really cool. So let's back up to something you said. You touched it and said your military experience. What was that?
So after high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So of course I joined the Army. Got history of military in my family. So war was going on. So I knew I wanted to serve. So joined the Army infantry, and from there deployed, got trained up for air assault in country. We did several air assault missions within our area of operations. And that's what actually made me fall in love with helicopters over fixed wing. Growing up fixed wing, like whole different experience being in a helicopter.
Yeah, absolutely. What was your dad's initial response when you kind of fell in love with helicopters? Was he?
He was happy that I found something that I liked. So
okay, that's good.
I was all over the place as a kid.
He wasn't offended that you gave up your fixed wing passion?
No, I already broke off from his way of doing things because most of the family's in the medical field. So leaving to go to the Army kind of broke that chain. So He's just happy I'm doing something and not in jail.
Got to think of the positive side of it. That's right.
Exactly.
What unit were you in the Army?
I was in 3-7 Infantry, 3rd Brigade, or 4th Brigade, 3rd ID.
3rd ID?
Yep.
Cool. So was that your first time in a helicopter, was when you were in the infantry?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. And
flying in Chinooks and Blackhawks.
Yeah. And you probably remember that pretty vividly too. That's
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool. All that aviation, then you hop in the Army. Next thing you know, you're in a Black Hawk going, yeah, this is pretty cool, and doing assaults. So where did the law enforcement element of your path come into play?
So after getting out of active duty, I came back to Texas for Texas's veteran benefits for the Hazelwood Act and using my GI Bill to go to college. And I was going to college here in Arlington at UTA for aerospace engineering. And coming from the infantry, especially combat infantry, college is boring. So I needed something that was a little more exciting than college, and applied to Fort Worth and got lucky enough that I got selected and got in and just ran with it.
Why Fort Worth?
Well, I don't like Dallas. Their roads are atrocious out there, and their traffic is even worse.
The rivalry continues.
I didn't want to work there, but I wanted to work at a big agency that had lots of opportunities to move around to different units, and Fort Worth had just about everything you could think of.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It sure does. It's a great town. We'll talk about that in a little bit here too. So when you came on Fort Worth PD, obviously you're a patrol officer for a while. Tell us about what led to the point where you became a relief TFO, getting your foot in the door there.
Yeah. So starting out, when I graduated the academy and went through field training, one of my first FTOs brought me up to the air support unit to do a ride out with Air One back then. And we do that even now with rookie officers. We'll bring them up, and it gives them a good perspective of how we see things from the air when we're on calls, to help them kind of learn, okay, this would be a great time to call Air One. Let's get them out there. And after riding in the unit, I worked patrol, and the opportunity presented itself to me. My first sergeant that I had when I hit patrol was Sergeant Keenum at the time, and he later became the unit's lieutenant over the unit. And I reached out and expressed my interest, and he got me an interview at the time with the chief pilot that we had. And from there, I got my foot in the door, started training as a relief TFO, and would cover shifts on my days off after I was trained up. And pretty much any time that there was a shift available, I would try and be the first one to jump on it so I could be up here in the helicopter covering shifts.
Nice. Were you hooked immediately?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. It's hard not to get hooked immediately.
Oh, yeah. It's by far the best job in the department.
I think it's really smart that departments do that, where they take, young officers, rookies, and they're doing well. They know they're gonna make it, and they bring them over to air support and get in the back. We did that, and I remember my first flight. That was the first time I was ever in a helicopter, and I'll never forget it. It was amazing, and I will be honest, I did not think when I got done with that, oh, I'm coming here someday. But I was very intrigued, and I was so impressed. John, did Ontario do anything like that when you went for ride-alongs as a street copper?
Yeah, but before we answer that, I have to say you're reading my mind again, because this line of conversation is exactly what I was kind of keying in on. I think there's so many benefits to agencies that do that. One, like you said, the exposure to the area unit, understanding what it is the area unit does, what some of their capabilities are. And I remember as a new, I'll say rookie, my head was spinning at that point. So it was nice to get off the street and go and have a little bit of time to kind of take the pressure off, Yeah. Having said that, I didn't fully appreciate, I don't think, what I was seeing, or fully understood what I was seeing, but it was a really good intro into understanding what the helicopter can and can't do. Right. I think some of the biggest misconceptions that patrol officers have comes from not understanding what our capabilities are with our camera systems and what the visibility looks like out this side of our aircraft. With that in mind, the 505, the visibility of the 505 is absolutely amazing. So,
yeah, it is.
For having a newer police officer come up and see that and understand when you're on the camera screen and you're trying to follow a suspect running through backyards, what your limitations are. There's so many times when I would be following somebody jumping yards, and another officer would ask me to help him set a perimeter. I'm like, hey, bro, I'm kind of busy. But they don't get it, right? They don't understand because they may not have had the luxury of going up and seeing exactly that. I think the other benefit is the recruitment side, and you kind of spoke to that, Jack.
Yeah.
Having folks come up and really kind of get excited for what potential opportunities lie in front of them later on in their career.
Yeah.
That's really exciting. So I'd imagine, for you guys, Scott, you guys see similar benefits with that same kind of program.
Oh, sure. Definitely. Yeah.
Alex, what do you remember that first flight? Was there anything, do you remember what you walked away with? I mean, the reason I'm asking that, I know it's a while ago. It's one flight. You've done tons of flights since, and they all blend together. I get all that, believe me. But I remember what I walked away with from my first flight. I'm curious if you did too, from a street cop perspective.
So yeah, it helped me really look at what kind of information I'm giving out over the radio when I'm giving suspect descriptions and vehicle descriptions, because I need to give as much detail as possible to help narrow down the scope and view of what people are looking for. And you definitely see it firsthand when you're in the helicopter. Like when you're giving out a vehicle description, they want you to find a white 4-door sedan. Well, hell, I can see 100 of them right now just looking out the window.
Yeah.
But once you start looking at the aftermarket wheels, any bumper stickers, any small damage to the vehicle, all that stands out and helps enhance the odds of us finding a suspect, and even ground units finding the suspect when they're looking.
I was convinced for a while that all suspects drove a 1998 white Honda Accord. With no sunroof.
I think they do, don't they? It's funny you say that, Alex, because that's what I walked away with. Same thing. Their perspective, and just going, wow, you got to be more. I got to be more specific, and communication. Yep. Those were the two things I walked away from. I remember it so vividly, and then it was many years later that I ended up going to air support. But that's impactful, and we tell people, when they come up for that ride, when they're a rookie, we say, listen, you're going to work with this unit all the time. You should understand what we can see, what we can't see, and how busy it is in here, so that when you say, hey, air unit, can you check this roof for me? That sometimes we don't get right back to you because we are in the middle of something else that you have no idea what's going on. We're talking to air traffic control, or the pilot's telling me, hey, hold on a second, we got to do this or that, or I'm talking on another frequency to get K9 to come. That sort of thing just enhances their knowledge, and it just seems to make for a better relationship with patrol officers. Yeah, I love it. I'm glad you guys do that.
We had a recent conversation, Jack. We're talking about debriefing and using videos, including ICS audio, for the debriefing for the benefit of everybody. And I think what you just described really paints a picture for folks that they don't ordinarily get insight into. Having some insight as to the internal chatter that goes on inside the cockpit between all the different radio frequencies you're listening to, like I said, air to air, the tower frequency, your primary dispatch frequency, and all the other frequencies that are going on. I think when people hear that, their mind is blown a bit. And like, holy cow, I had no idea that it wasn't just this one frequency. Like, in a police car, you primarily have that one frequency that's going. So I like the idea of using the videos for training and debriefing for kind of what you're talking about,
Yeah, that's the radio package is so unique. Many ride-alongs will say, I don't know how you were able to tell what frequency. You have multiple frequencies. How do you know who's talking and who's doing this? And I remember my dad was on a ride-along with me the first time he was up, and we got done with the shift, and he said, my head is killing me. I got a headache just listening to all these radios. How did you decipher all that? And I said, well, guess what? It's noise for everybody. I think you would both agree. It's noise in the beginning with four or five frequencies, and some air agencies even have more. But after a while, you learn, your ear figures it out, and you can key on things, and you can change volume levels and things like that, little tricks. And next thing you know, it sounds normal. But in the beginning, it is quite overwhelming. And I've been told that by multiple ride-alongs, particularly young coppers that are used to listen to one frequency, maybe two. and not 4 or 5, plus an aviation frequency that might be up. So that's great that you do that. Good. Hope you keep doing that. Is there something from patrol time, Alex, that you could tell us about where you worked with air support that really got the wheels turning? In addition to that ride along, was there something in patrol that grabbed you and said, man, I think that might be on my radar now?
Thanks to our sponsor, Traca Systems. With over 25 years delivering groundbreaking searchlights, stabilized EOIR cameras, mission mapping, and downlinking solutions, Traca products improve situational clarity and coordination with ground crews, increasing mission safety and effectiveness. Visit tracasystems.com. See clearly, act decisively.
So pursuits are always the big one, because when you're that lead vehicle in the pursuit, you just kicked it off and you're down there, you're trying to see what the suspect's doing, drive the car, clear intersections, talk on the radio, give all those updates. And it's hectic. But once that helicopter gets on scene, they take over calling so you can focus on driving and focus on those suspects' actions. Then it really helps show the need for these types of assets and why they're here and how much safer everyone can be with them on scene.
Yeah, it doesn't take long to figure that out as a patrol officer.
Yeah.
For units, for departments like yours that have established long-standing air support units, that you figure it out very quickly. Wow, I'm going to be working with these folks a lot up here, and boy, are they helpful.
Yeah.
I got to learn as much as I can to do my job to help in that teamwork. But there's some really interesting stories that come out of the podcast from patrol officers that remember, their first pursuit or their first foot pursuit, where all of a sudden the night sun hits them or something, and they just go, "Whoa, what a game changer!" And many of them end up being interested in going and doing that job someday.
Oh, absolutely.
Pursuit management, whether it's on the ground or from the air, is one of the most fun things that I think I got a chance to do in law enforcement. I loved being involved in those. For you, when you think through all the pursuits you've been a part of, I know there's a lot, especially in aviation. Is there one that kind of sticks out as something that is impactful for one reason or another? I think to Jack, and I remember asking him what his funniest one was, and it was the foot pursuit that came from a vehicle that the guy had clown shoes on or something like that.
Yeah, the clown.
For you guys, I know Fort Worth sees a lot of interesting things. You have a lot of tourism in Fort Worth. Any interesting pursuits that come to mind?
So I've definitely had several interesting ones, and the ones that really come to mind are the ones that really key in on officer safety, because it usually involves suspects shooting back at officers during the pursuits, or suspect bailing out of the car with a gun and carjacking other people during the pursuit. And it's just getting that pertinent information out to the ground officers for the safety of them and the public. Those are the ones that stand out the most to us.
Yeah. No doubt. Scott, how about you, pursuit wise, while we're on the pursuit topic? Any from a pilot perspective, are there any that jump out at you?
I guess the one that comes to mind is just for the sheer length of it. We had one that started in Fort Worth, went all across the Metroplex to Dallas, through DFW's Airspace, back through the middle of the Metroplex, back to Fort Worth. It ended up being about an hour and well over an hour and a half in length. And it was just so long, and we involved so many different agencies and calling all these different people and getting all the adjoining cities involved, and finally ended up back in Fort Worth where we started. It was just a really lengthy and almost comical, but really, really incredibly long one.
Well, I would imagine any pursuit where you're going through DFW Bravo is probably becomes memorable. I mean, that is among the busiest airports in the country, obviously. For those that have been there, they know there's runways on both sides.
Yeah, well, we went right between the runways, right up the middle of the International Parkway, right between the runways.
That's great.
The tower was really, the controller was really good about letting us through there, and we pursued that guy right up through the middle and kept on going. So it worked out pretty well for us.
I think a lot of these bad guys, they think, I'm going to go to the airport, because that air support unit, they're going to have to pull off. They have no idea what the reality is. If they want to keep believing that, that's fine. But but if you can chase somebody up between the runways at DFW, you can chase somebody any place. I mean,
Exactly.
Yep.
Talk about what you guys do to foster your relationship with the tower folks at DFW.
Well, we usually try to offer, solutions like, this, I tell them I'm pursuing, first of all, so they know that it's a serious thing. And then, um, I, I tell them that I have, the airliner in sight, American 472. I heard him on call in or whatever. I can tell them I have that aircraft in sight, and I'll stay below, or I'll stay low, or I'll stay to the east, or whatever I can do to try to mitigate it for them and make their job easier and make them feel safe having us there. Make them understand that we're not going to interfere with them any more than we have to, and we'll try to stay out of the way, basically.
Yeah. Is there anything you do ahead of time? I mean, obviously you have some sort of letter agreement with them, I'm sure.
We have a
procedures,
transponder code, so they know it's us, so they can see us, and they'll usually have us ident. And so we'll just ident for them, and they say, okay, yeah, we see you. And again, we typically try to stay low if that will be helpful for them, and try to avoid. We can offset to a certain extent. The camera is really good on this aircraft, so we can be a good ways off and still be able to maintain contact with the camera. So just things like that. We'll try to offer solutions to them before they have to ask us for something.
That's really nice. I bet they really appreciate that.
Yeah,
that's good.
They're really good about. Those guys are professional. Those guys are really good, and they kind of know what to expect from us. And they don't get freaked out that a helicopter's in their airspace. Right. They just roll with it, and they're actually pretty good about dealing with us. And it doesn't happen so often that it becomes a problem, I guess, with them. So they're really good to work with, actually.
Yeah.
But on Ontario, we had the benefit of a relatively small number of staff members working the tower, so we got to know each tower staff member pretty well. You check into the airspace, and I could tell you who was working the primary frequency because I've talked to him a million times. Yeah. We got the chance to go down and break bread with these folks and meet them face to face, and I think those efforts that we put in paid dividends, big time. I know through the chili fly-in, air quotes, chili fly-in, that was the same idea, right? Kind of fruitful, and your ability to generate these relationships and foster these relationships with the controllers. On top of that, them getting the chance to board the aircraft, fly into Hooper on the helicopter and see, what it looks like when you're a mile away from the airport or a mile away from Hooper, because they're telling you usually keep a mile separation, right?
Right.
But they realize when they can see it firsthand that a mile is actually really far. Yeah. Maybe not from the tower, their perspective from the tower. But
that's something that we've done we're based here at Meacham Airport in Fort Worth. And that's something we've done with our Meacham controllers. We try to get them up to fly with us and let them see what we can see and see it from our perspective and see how easily we can avoid the flow of their traffic. And they're super good about working with us too. They're really kind of pretty much let us do whatever we need to do. And they're really great about carving out airspace if need be for us. And we have a really good relationship with them. But it's like you said, we talk to them all the time, and we try to get them rides and show them what it looks like from our perspective and things like that. So that I think that helps out a lot, and we really appreciate the relationship we have with those guys.
Yeah, that's
no
cool.
doubt,
and gals.
No doubt. Yeah, the more they know about what you do, the better service you're going to get from them. There's no doubt about it. They'll have that idea in their head. Well, these guys know what they're doing. They're very professional, and I can trust them. If I tell them to do this, they're going to do it. And I know that because I've met them, I've talked to them, I've ridden with them, I've had chili with them, whatever it is, they respond to that. And then on the other hand, I'm curious, Scott, have you ever been up in DFW Tower?
Never been in DFW's tower. I've been in Meacham's tower. I've been in the Tracon room and all that over there at DFW, but I've never been up in their tower yet.
Oh man, you should put that on your list, I think.
Yeah, I should.
Because I've been up in LAX tower maybe 3 times, and each time I left there and went, wow, I can't believe what these guys do. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, you're just standing there quietly and watching, and there's all these people up there, and they're doing 3 things at once, and they're coordinating things, and they're doing it so calmly and professionally. And you just go, this is an amazing thing that most people around the world take for granted. They just take it for granted. And until something goes wrong, and then they all go crazy, but they do that 24/7 around the world. And you just go, this is amazing what they do. But seeing it in the tower really, really changes you as a pilot, I think. So that's pretty cool. I think most agencies have figured out that relationship's important, but I don't think enough agencies go those extra steps like you just talked about and like John just talked about, where you just go that extra step to meet them, bring them up, get them in that helicopter. That's going to pay dividends, and you'll see it. I know I saw it. Countless times where on surveillance in particular, not always on surveillance, but patrol too, where you would tell the controller, this is what I have. I may need a rapid descent here in a minute, because you know what's happening on the bad guy side.
Right.
And they go, approved. I mean, there's no, well, can you move north? Can you move south? Okay. No. It's approved. And that is because of the relationship that we garnered years ahead of time. People did it long before I was ever at Air Support. They were doing this. And I can remember one in particular where we were following robbery suspects, and they went in and they hit a grocery store. We watched them do it, and they came out, and now we're at 6,500 feet looking at them on binoculars. And we know what's going to happen next. The surveillance team's going to take them down, and this is going to get wild. And we gave the controller a heads up. They said, that's approved. Whenever you do it, just let me know you're doing it, but it's approved right now.
Right.
And sure enough, the shootout begins, and we dive out of the sky. Sean Malika and I dived out. We dove out of the sky from 6,500. Now we're the low-level ship setting the perimeter for suspects running. But they didn't blink. And I remember thinking later, well, let me back up for a second. One thing that I always did was I always let the controller know the outcome. SoCal, Idaho 70, we're good. Thank you for that. We were able to get down there. All the bad guys are in custody. All the good guys are okay. And you're part of that team. Thanks for that. And you could hear them sometimes in the background going, yeah. I mean, other people yelling because they were, they were just excited that they were a part of that, So it's a good conversation because if people in the units are listening and saying, and I don't think I met my tower people, they got to go do that. Yeah. They got to take the time and go meet them and talk to them, especially, one that you're flying in and out of all the time.
Absolutely.
Sure. Really cool. Alex, back to you for a second.
Yeah.
Tell us, you, in 2022, that part-time relief TFO turned into TFO, full-time in the unit. Tell us about that transition to full-time and how you're liking it.
Oh, I absolutely love it. How it works for us is the older crew that was here before my time, it was time for them to start retiring. So position started opening up. And based on the amount of time that I had already dedicated to the unit on my days off, kind of put me in the lead of other relief TFOs when they put in. So when we post our position, it doesn't go citywide to the whole department. It goes to those of us who have already spent our time, been serving on our relief list as relief TFOs, covering days off, and that are already trained. That way we're not bringing somebody fresh off the street that has no experience in the aircraft, training them up and then possibly not being able to do the job. So you already have a group of people that are already vetted for the position. And out of those people that are already vetted for the position and trained up, you have ones that are more active on the list of the others and show more time and dedication to the unit. And that kind of puts you in the lead for those positions when they open up. And that's exactly how I got my spot on the unit.
Wow. So let's back up and talk about that relief job a little bit more detail, because I like what you just told me. So as relief pilot, now, Alex, you made it clear that you were grabbing every shift you could.
Absolutely.
Maybe not everybody does that as a relief TFO, but for you, how many shifts was that in a month average?
So it honestly depends because, like I said, a lot of the guys from before my time, they were getting close to retirement, so they're burning more time. So they would take their vacations, and they'd ask me, "Hey, can you cover my 7 days on? I'm going on vacation." I'd get it cleared with my patrol supervisor. "Hey, Air One needs coverage for these 7 days. Can I get out of patrol and cover up there?" And absolutely. So it helped having a good patrol supervisor that was down for me to cover in these positions, but it'd also be me on my 3 days off from patrol. If there's spot available that needed coverage, I'd be like, yeah, I'll just earn comp time and go work up there just so I gets my face in the door and shows that I want to be there. So that I did it as much as I could.
That is really smart. Good job, Fort Worth PD. Whoever's approved that, because it's way above your guys' pay grade.
Yeah.
That said, hey, that's a good idea. It is a good idea. That's really smart. You got a lot of your training prior to ever coming there as a full timer. By the time you got there as a full timer, you went, I know this job. I'm going to get more experience at it now. I'm going to get better at it.
Exactly.
And it's going to be more consistent. But I know the job. I performed this job, and they can bring you up with confidence because they know. Not only do they know you personally.
He's not saying it, but the other side of the coin is that the pilots and the other TFOs know him. They get to know him. They look at him. They go, "That's the guy we want. That's the one right there."
Yeah.
He's proven himself and shown that he can do the job, and we would prefer to have this one.
That's
this guy right there.
How valuable is that? I mean, instead of bringing somebody up full time and finding out later, not a good fit.
Exactly.
And I'm not just talking about TFO skills. I'm talking about personality. Not a good fit for the cockpit, right? Yeah. And we all are thinking of people in our heads and stories. And we'll just share that for another time when maybe the last podcast ever, we'll lay it all out. Okay, this is who. But you guys, we're all laughing because it's true.
Yes.
There is something special when you're on the island of air support and you're out at the hangar and it's almost, I hate to say this, it's almost like the firefighter thing where you're almost living together at that hangar, and you're in this tiny little cockpit, and personality is significant. If you have somebody that is toxic, that is not good. That is going to hurt your unit. It's going to hurt the service you provide. So you got to see, so I'll say, Scott, you got to see Alex, before he ever came up there as a full timer. So, that's a good thing as a pilot, knowing, hey, they're bringing Alex up full time. Yes. Cause I've worked with him. I've seen him.
Right.
Not like you meet him for the first time when he shows up.
Yep. Right.
That's great. And I'll add this. I love that patrol supervision is willing to let you go do that too. That's really smart on Fort Worth. There are many agencies. We've talked to some of them. We know some of them where that's an act of God and you say, hey, can I go up to air support and fill in? They really need me. And they go, well, you know what? We need you to. No, are you a TFO or are you a street cop? Well, I'm kind of both. Well, you're here. You're staying here. No, you can't go up. Think of how that would hurt Fort Worth, getting
Absolutely.
Good, qualified, hardworking TFOs. I love it. I'm glad that came out.
What helps is just showing how much of an asset the helicopter is that they're willing to do that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sure.
No doubt that proves that your aviation unit is respected and looked at in that limelight, like you just said, Alex. That they know the value, and they're willing to give you up from a patrol slot to go up there because they know this is going to pay dividends for fellow patrol officers. Which
exactly.
Very cool. Now in 2025, not that long ago, you became the lead TFO. That didn't take you long. What is the lead TFO position? What does that do with Fort Worth Aviation Unit?
Thank you to our sponsor, Rotorcraft Support. Rotorcraft Support, from the hangar floor to the flight line. We've spent 40 years caring for the aircraft that communities rely on every day. Rotorcraft Support, where dedication meets decades of experience.
So for us, it's helping select, evaluate, and train potential relief TFOs. I keep in contact with all of our equipment representatives. If we have any issues with the police equipment, I'm working with our mechanic and those third-party reps to make sure our equipment's working and functioning as it should for every mission. Another thing that it entailed, which I helped establish, was an actual training program for us, because in the past, we never had any official TFO training on paper. It was come up here, straight OJT, learn it as you go. But I put together a 30 some odd page training manual for us that covers just about everything and breaks it down and holds standards to those different things. Like they're meeting the standard, they're where they need to be, or what they're doing is unacceptable. We can't have them as part of the unit because they're going to be more of a hazard and more of an officer safety issue than they will be of an asset to us. So helping getting some of those things in place for the unit to help future-proof the unit and move it along, help establish that role.
Have you seen since that's been established, have you seen a difference?
So it's still a work in progress. I'm actually currently in the process of training a new TFO with that set guideline. So we just actually implemented the new training manual and the guidelines involved with it. So it's a work in progress. Even the full-time TFOs, we're going to be held to the same standard as the relief guys. So everyone is on the same page. Everyone is at the same level, and that's how it needs to be.
I agree with that 100%. A relief TFO can be over the big stuff, just like the full timer. You just don't know when it's coming. So that's a very important thing. Again, there's units out there that have relief or part-time or whatever they title it, TFOs. It's very challenging to do that when you're not getting, the nightly reps. This is a hard job. But some of them say, well, we don't have to have the same standard. Well, hold on a second. Yeah, you do. How do you know when the big pursuit with the shots fired, like you guys were mentioning, is going to happen? It could be on a relief TFO shit. That's not a good way to look at it by these departments to go, well, it's okay. They're just a relief TFO. No, it has to be the same standard. It's harder to do. Would you agree with that, Alex, that it's, as a relief, it's harder to meet that standard probably because you're not getting as many reps, but it is possible.
Yes, absolutely. And especially before, when we were running different aircrafts with different systems in it, even currently we have different systems in the aircraft, different computer systems. One's on shot over, the other one's on aero. So somebody that's not getting constant reps in those, and they're used to working in one ship as opposed to the other, and they come in to cover their relief shift, and they're in the ship that they're not familiar with, and they have to fumble through stuff. And no, we want them to know all that firsthand. And if they're not getting the reps in that they constantly need, it could be a detriment to the mission.
Absolutely. One last thing from me anyway on this that I'm curious about: how do you perform that training or check rides for the relief and full-time TFOs? Do you have pilots that are designated as trainers as well, or do you go hop in the back with them? How does your unit do that?
So I'm in the back generally with training. There's two of us that are TFO trainers. It's myself and his full-time TFO, which is Heidi Plummer. We're the two TFO trainers, so we're the ones that go in and evaluate each person. So when it's my turn for evaluation, she'll be in the back evaluating me to the same standard that I would evaluate her and everyone else to.
Wow. Good. That's a great way to do it. Now that takes a lot of your time, I would imagine.
When we are training, yeah, right now we're trying to bolster our relief TFO list. So we're trying to get more people in the pipeline, get them trained up. So we have more people wanting to come up and cover and get shifts covered as needed.
Yeah. What percentage of your time now, Alex, is training versus just being a TFO, hopping in a bird with Scott and going?
It generally depends. Like, this is the first relief TFO we've trained in probably 6 months. So it's not much, but I'm training him in our schedule is a 7 days on, 7 days off schedule. So he's getting 80 hours straight with us, getting good consistency in on the calls and on the equipment. So it's a long week when you're training with them for a whole week, but it's beneficial.
Oh yeah. It's much better doing it that way than seeing them, next Tuesday and then 3 weeks go by and then you see them. How do you accomplish anything?
Like when I trained, we would have to come in on our days off and earn comp time and hopefully get calls and just learn it as we went on our time off and just get it when we could. So it could take a couple, 3, 4, sometimes 5 months to get somebody trained up. Whereas now we're trying to do it in a 2-3 week period, depending on how quickly these people pick up the job.
We had a similar problem because you get a guy, you might have somebody assigned air support for a month to get that experience. And in that month, for whatever reason, it was quiet. There wasn't a whole lot of activity.
Yep.
Now you look at some of the technology that's available, mainly through systems like Shotover and the like. You can essentially work a bunch of critical calls without even leaving the ground. So
Yeah.
you generate or expose this TFO to all kinds of different incidents without actually having to go and burn jet fuel and not get any actual calls for service or on the job training. So this new era that we're in as a TFO, a trainee TFO, absolutely amazing. And essentially, as a new TFO, you don't even have to go to the hangar to be training this stuff. You could generate or you could access those videos, obviously through the permission of the unit, and take the time on your off day or whatever in between calls to start working through some of that stuff. So I think where we are today is pretty cool. I'm a bit jealous because I wish I could have had access to that as a new TFO.
It's a lot different than when we had MAPSCOs in our laps to call pursuits, flipping through pages, trying to figure out where we were.
Yeah, worrying about that map going out the window and everything.
Yep.
No doubt about it. Talk about that for a second, Alex. Talk about the technology now. I'm gonna plug an article that I finished last night. That's going to come out in the VAI issue, the mega issue of Vertical and Vertical Valor, and it's about this TFO training and how it's evolved with technology. Give me your spiel on that, Alex. How do you feel about that?
It's made leaps and bounds. So starting out, having to learn how to do it with a MAPSCO is a pain. And then, of course, you get into the newer systems from there where we could run the camera with a split screen with a moving map on the split screen, but not quite sure where the camera's looking, but you got to know where it's looking on the map to be able to call it, to where you have map overlays, and the map overlays are huge, but you need to have another way to do it in case it fails. You got to know how to bring up those maps still and be able to do everything that you can to give accurate information to the guys on the ground, because you don't want them jumping into the wrong yard or putting their backs to the suspect because you're calling something wrong. So you want those exact addresses. And the technology now gives us that ability where, hey, if you just jump to the backyard of 1409 Main Street, we're pretty dang sure that that's the backyard he's in, because that's the exact GPS coordinate it's given me on that screen. So it's huge.
It's incredible what it's come to. How does that affect the way you train? Well, let me put it this way. Even when you started as a relief to now, the technology has changed, right?
Yes.
So, and you were trained by somebody. How has that training changed because of the improved technology?
So it's changed a lot because, as y'all know, the newer systems are a lot more user-friendly and intuitive. So our old systems that we were running, Aero Computer, which one of our 505s is still outfitted with, you got to remember and learn a lot of different keystrokes to get a lot of the stuff done. Whereas Shotover is very intuitive, where you've got little icons on the screen. You can just push that little icon, like, oh, I need to turn on the downlink. That's the little satellite picture.
Yeah.
Or the little camera to record, where you don't have to remember certain key presses to bring up a sub menu to get to those different things. You could just do it right on the screen. So it's evolved a lot, and for the better. It's definitely a lot more user-friendly, which makes it easier to train people, which in turn gives them more reps playing with the camera and doing everything to fine-tune those skills.
Excellent. Very consistent with the people that I talked to for that article. It said very similar things. It's still a hard job.
It is.
But it has become easier because of the technology.
Mm-hmm.
What's one last thing on this, and then I'm going to switch gears. So get ready, Scott. I'm going to switch gears over to you. But Alex, what's the biggest challenge you're seeing in today's world with new relief TFOs coming up? Is there something in particular that they tend to struggle with? Is there a trend that you have seen?
So yes, and it's kind of why we changed the way we do things. We want our relief TFOs to have at least 5 years of patrol experience before they come up here to even train to do this job, because we want them to experience these hot calls on the ground and get good experience with them, with establishing perimeters on the ground. Because once you go up and you're visually seeing these perimeters from the air and you're like, oh, this is terrible. Like, I need you guys to move this unit over to this corner, one over here, so we have all avenues covered. And getting that kind of tactical experience, learning it from patrol, whether they had no life experience coming into the police job, or if they had something prior that helps, like military, then we can definitely train people up easier that way. But getting that good patrol experience in there definitely helps teach them the job and makes it easier. Any kind of
Agreed.
tactical mindset that they have coming into it helps tremendously.
No doubt. That's a good rule. That 5-year rule is a good one. Now, smaller departments can't afford to do that. I mean, they need to wiggle, maybe move.
Exceptions are made based on past experience, like
Sure.
coming from military. Like
Yep.
the guy we're training right now, he's been a police officer a total of 3 years, but he was also an Apache pilot while he was in the military. So he's
Yep.
got experience running thermals and everything like that,
Yes.
and working those tactical scenes from the air. So we're able to make exceptions based on prior experience, and it just comes down to us learning about each individual that's putting in and knowing where they came from, what they've done prior, and
Yeah.
it makes the training easier for sure.
Great example. I mean, that you used. I mean, that person is an Apache pilot, not as impressive as a Kiowa pilot, as we'll get to in a minute, but Apaches are okay too. And I mean, that person's been under stress in a cockpit, looking at the perspective air to ground, talking air to ground. I mean, it's the TFO job. Yeah. And while you're flying, I mean, it really is. So it's just, we don't get the missiles. So I get it. But yeah, that would be a good exception. That's really good. I love it. Anything on the TFO side, John, on this topic before we switch over to Scott and learn about Kiowas?
I'll just close that out by saying I like what you guys have done with the development of the standards. To quote Dave Ramsey, who I love, he says, "To be clear is to be kind." And I think for folks to come in and have a clear understanding of what is expected of them, what the progression of the training looks like, so they have a full understanding of what's in front of them, I think is key. And the flip side of that, Matt Zadunich from San Diego PD talked about the benefits of documentation. Having a clear way to document people to where if you have to get rid of them, there's some really clear and identifiable reasons why this person was terminated from the program. So human resources can't come back to you at some point and be like, well, I think you just didn't like this person. Like, no, there's actual documentation here that outlines why this is the case. So I think it's important for those reasons as well.
All right. So Scott, let's shift over to the pilot's perspective on a lot of stuff, but we'll start with where you grew up, and obviously you ended up in aviation. So talk about your earliest aviation influence and earliest military influence that drew you in that direction, where you ended up military and now with Fort Worth.
Yeah. So I grew up in Louisiana. I'm not sure where it came from, but I've always been interested in aviation. My father was in the Air Force. My uncle was in the Marines, had another uncle in the Navy, had a cousin in the Army. So the military has always been around my life too. And so I guess I was drawn to the military in the first place, and then aviation also. And somehow I was in the Louisiana National Guard as an engineer, heavy equipment operator. And I just remember watching the helicopters go by and like, those guys are in the same unit as I am. I should maybe consider doing that. And so long story short, I ended up talking to the recruiter and went active duty and became a pilot and flew Kiowas for about 11 years on active duty. And then I went in the New York Guard because I was stationed in upstate New York, went to New York Guard after that and flew Black Hawks for about 6 years and then retired from there to come to Fort Worth.
Wow. So what kind of aircraft was flying over you most of the time that you saw?
Well, those are Hueys back then that I looked at, and that distinctive wop 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 sound. I was like, man, that looks pretty cool. And I'd seen the Vietnam movies and things like that, and I was like, yeah,
sure,
that's a cool aircraft. I'd like to do that.
Did you get in a flight at all before you decided that, or did you just know?
Thanks to our sponsor, Summit Aviation, a full-service provider for business, government, parapublic, and military aviation, specializing in maintenance, modifications, avionics, interiors, and paint. Discover more at summit-aviation.com.
Somehow a bunch of us finagled a kind of an incentive flight. I'm not sure what they were trying to incentivize us for, but we were happy to get it. So so that was fun. And I just always knew that I'd want to fly. And so, I just enjoyed all of it.
Nice. I remember Cody Bogart. She went on a morale flight and said, "Oh, that's it."
Yeah.
I mean, she just went from a truck working on trucks and to that's it. I want to do this, and she did. I mean, it's just amazing. It's amazing
and
how
I enjoyed doing that a lot of times in the military whenever I could. Given in Iraq, a couple of times we gave cooks and some of the mechanics and supply people and people that would never normally get a chance to fly, just gave them a ride just because we could, and they loved it. Those mess hall clerks or cooks would keep dinner for us when we'd come home late from a mission or something like that. So we're like, hey, let's give these guys a ride. These guys are working for us, so let's give them something. And they loved it, of course. And who knows, maybe I inspired some of them to fly too.
It's funny you brought up, looking up and seeing the aircraft and be like, they're in the same unit as me. Well, maybe I could do that same thing. I remember working patrol.
Yeah.
It was a really hot summer day, and I'm out directing traffic on a major crash for hours. And I saw the helicopter fly back and forth a couple times. I'm like, man, I wish I could be up there doing that. Instead, I'm sitting down here in this intersection directing traffic. The quality of life is a lot different, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
What did you train on when you went to? I assume you went to Fort Rucker.
I did. Yep.
What did you train on initially? What airframe?
So back then they were initial flight training was in the Bell 206. Basically, it was a TH-67, but it was essentially an off-the-shelf Bell 206.
Right. And then once you were assigned an airframe, it was the Kiowa. Right out of training where you switched?
So I had the choice between Apaches and Kiowas, and I chose Kiowas because I thought, I didn't know what I didn't know when I first got in there, but I thought Apaches were pretty cool. But then one of my buddies in flight school was an Apache mechanic, and he's like, "Man, I'm telling you, you don't want the Apache." And I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Well, the maintenance issues, they don't fly as much." And I started asking around a little bit, and sure enough, I found out that they weren't flying as much at that time. This is 1998 or so.
Yeah.
And so it was. I was like, yeah, okay, I guess I want to be a Kiowa guy. They have guns too, and they do cool stuff. And that's one of the talking to old warrant officer one day. He was like, look, the way to choose an aircraft is to choose the mission that they fly. So whatever mission suits you, you're going to like the aircraft. It doesn't matter what it is. And so I kind of thought that the scout mission was probably the best thing for me. And so that's what I did.
It's a very, very cool mission. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. But before we get to the missions, tell us about the Kiowa. I mean, just give us an overview of the OH-58, and you flew the D model.
Yeah, right.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the OH-58 actually was born in the 60s. It was what became the Bell 206. Actually, it was a military aircraft first. It was in a competition for scout aircraft from the military, and so the OH-58 Alpha and Charlie were the initial versions of it. The Alpha flew in Vietnam. I think the Charlie came along a little bit later with some modifications. And that's what was still flying around until the 80s and 90s. But at some point in the 80s, they decided they needed to modify it and arm it up and try to have it keep up with the Apache. So the OH-58 Alpha Charlie kind of was paired up with the Cobra in Vietnam to be the scout for the Cobras, essentially. And so they wanted something a little bit faster and more robust to fly those same type of missions for the Apache. And so the OH-58 Delta, they modified the engine and the rotors. They basically took the 407 drivetrain and put it in a 206 body and took out the steam gauges and made a glass cockpit. And they had the rear seat was all taken with 80s computer boxes, big, giant, bulky 80s Commodore 64 boxes type stuff that would drive the weapon systems. And they had a mast-mounted sight on top, that big ball that you see on the top.
Right.
So the idea was that it would, this is Cold War technology, Cold War thinking here. So we were thinking, the Russians are going to attack, so we're going to be in Germany trying to fight off the Russians. We're going to poke that little ball up above the trees and designate targets while the Apaches huck missiles at it from 7Ks away or something like that.
Yeah.
And nobody will ever see that little ball poking up over the tree. So that was kind of what the Kiowa was doing. It was a scout, supposed to be nimble and scoot around and find the bad guys. call them out, designate them for artillery or for Apaches or whatever else. And so the OH-58 Delta was quite a bit different from the Alpha Charlie, which is, like I said, basically a 206. So the 58 Delta is more like a 407, except it's got weapons and that sight. So
Right. It really changed the look of that aircraft too, didn't it?
it really did. Yeah. It was quite a different looking aircraft.
Oh yeah.
Handled a lot different too.
Oh, I'll bet. I've had my first 20 or so hours was in a OH-58 C model that we had. We had a couple of military acquisition ones, and we used them at that time for very briefly for training, and then eventually used them for surveillance and things. And so I've got a bunch of hours in a 58, and it's a 206, like you said, but a little bit bulkier and strong. It felt a little bit more solid at times,
Yeah.
But great aircraft. And the mission kind of changed from like Vietnam. Those guys were flying those at treetop level, drawing fire, and now individual people, as opposed to by the time you were flying, it was really looking as anti-armor. Is that what's
that was what essentially that's what I was always told that the 58D was designed for. They were thinking that was going to be like kind of like the modern Apache 58D mission, Kiowa Warrior mission. So so they kind of wanted to go sneak around in the trees, and they were kind of thinking European theater and Korea and things like that. Not really they weren't thinking about the desert, I guess, back then. They're always we're arming up for the war that we just had, and not the one that we're going to have, right? So that's the way the thinking was going.
But you still got to experience a lot of, I would imagine, a lot of low level nap of the earth kind of flying because of the mission.
Training we did. We definitely I went to Korea for a year, and that was we kind of were the North Korean invasion scenario type of thing. That was kind of what we were always practicing for up there. And then just the training in general was still, even though Russia had kind of gone away as a major threat, that was still kind of the mentality of the training. So it was that kind of armor, the anti-armor thing, like you're saying, and things like that. And then, of course, we ended up in the desert, and things were a little bit different over there. But we still did low level over there. We just didn't have any trees to hide behind.
Yeah. What year did they retire the Kiowa officially?
I think that was in 17 or 18. My Kiowa friends are going to crucify me for not knowing.
That's okay.
It was after I got out, so I kind of lost track. But
I know that's where I just kind of looked up a couple things about it. But the Kiowa was in service for 50 years.
Wow,
it's amazing.
820,000 combat hours.
Yeah,
that's incredible. That's incredible. That's a really good aircraft.
Or just reliable. It just kept going. That was, I guess, the Black Hawk did pretty good in the desert too. But the Kiowa was always reliable. Our crew chiefs were awesome. They knew that aircraft inside and out, but they were simple, and they didn't mind the heat and the sand and stuff as much as some of the other aircraft that were more sophisticated. And so they just did a little bit better as far, and the simplicity is the main thing, really. They just they're simple, and they kept going, and they kept going, and they kept going, and they just flew.
Wow. What you touched on the mission profiles, but talk about some of the mission equipment that you're able to talk about, and the crew makeup for a 58 when you were flying it.
So we had a crew of 2 in there. So you'd have a pilot and both are rated aviators, both are pilots, but one basically was flying. It's almost exactly like what we have with the police aircraft, and that's why it's such a good fit. But for me, so you have a pilot, and then the other guy who in the Kiowas was also a pilot, but he's running the site and mostly the radios and stuff like that. So there was sets of controls at both stations, but in order you can only work the site from the left seat, and the pilot was basically responsible for weapon systems, and the co-pilot was basically responsible for the site and for typically running the mission. You could do it from either seat, but typically the left seater would kind of be the commander of the mission, or kind of the quarterback of the mission, not unlike our TFOs in the police situation, kind of actually running things, and the pilot's just kind of flying, getting you put where you need to be to see what you need to see.
Right.
you've asked about weapon systems. So yeah, we had you could vary the weapons on it. You could have a 50 caliber machine gun, or you could have rockets, or you could have Hellfire missiles. In the early days, you could have Stinger missiles, but they kind of let that fade into the background over the years. So in Iraq, we were typically either rocket Hellfire, or sorry, rocket 50 or rocket, and sometimes Hellfires, but the Hellfires were kind of heavy, and we were already at max gross weight on those things all the time. So the Hellfire, there wasn't a lot to shoot at later in the war. So as the things progressed, we kind of left the Hellfires at home more often than not, and just used rockets and 50 cal.
Nice. What were you assigned to a particular infantry unit, or was it standalone for the 58?
It kind of depended on what unit you were in. While I was with the 3rd ACR, we basically had a ground squadron that we worked with, and we would always had a habitual relationship with, and whatever they wanted, we would kind of help them. In other units, it was more of a area-wide asset. You just kind of went wherever you needed to go and wherever you were ordered to do. So I guess it just kind of depends on the unit and what their needs were.
Right. Well, you did 2 tours in Iraq, correct?
I did. Yeah.
Tell us give us an overview of those tours and what you were doing, and then pick out a particular impactful experience during one of those tours or both, and share that with us.
Yeah. So the first time we were over there in 2003, right when the war kicked off, actually that was with 3rd ACR, and we got over there, and we were in Kuwait while most of the fighting was going on. We were waiting for all of our equipment to come across the sea to us in the boats. And so by the time we got into Iraq, it was pretty much all the major shooting wars had ended, but there was still all the insurgency that was just starting to build and get worse and worse. So we spent a lot of time doing convoy securities and things like that to kind of keep our guys safe. And we did a few scout missions looking for this or that, and checking out different places and providing overwatch for ground units that were kicking indoors and things like that. So it's hard to say what would have happened if we hadn't been there. You don't know if the convoy you were protecting would have been attacked if you hadn't been there. So none were attacked while we were there. So I guess that's good. I don't know if anything bad would have happened if we hadn't been there. I do remember one time, I guess the one that stands out for me is we were just on our way to from point A to point B, and we heard over the regimental frequency that a unit had just been attacked, and they were calling it in. And so we dropped down to their frequency and got some more details, and it was close by to where we happened to be. And so we raced over there, got the details from the ground units, and pursued the attackers, while we always used to fly in 2-ship formation. So one of us took off and chased the attackers, while the other one called in a 9-line medevac for one of the soldiers that had been wounded on the ground. And we were able to hold the fleeing suspects long enough for the ground unit to come and arrest them and take them into custody. So we got medical attention for the one injured soldier and captured the bad guys. So that was a pretty good mission for us that day. We liked that one.
No doubt. And I love what you said about not knowing. I mean, the bad guys know about all the airframes and flying. I'm sure they knew about that Kiowa, and they knew, hey, that thing's got rockets on it. It's got automatic weapons,
Yeah. One thing I didn't mention was that, we had the rockets and the 50 cal, and eventually the bad guys learned that we more than likely wouldn't just go shoot rockets down the main street while people are standing there. But we absolutely would shoot the M4 out the door at them. And so when we circle around and you got that open left doors, guys pointing the M4 at you, they kind of stopped what they're doing, and they were like, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
Because they knew we would shoot that out with no qualms at all.
It's amazing what a show of force can do to save lives on the ground without a shot being fired. And I remember my son was in Afghanistan and him talking about the show of force, low passes by jets and helicopters occasionally. And when that happened on patrols, it was quiet. They knew that something just went by at a high rate of speed. They know if they mess up, they're going to come back. It's amazing. Wow, cool.
The correlation between the mission you're talking about and what we're doing in law enforcement aviation is very striking there as well, because we talk about not being able to put a figure as far as a life-saving figure in place because of what we're doing. We know that there's an impact and we're influencing behavior, but we don't know how. Interesting correlation there between that. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers.
Thanks to our sponsor, Summit Aviation, a full-service provider for business, government, parapublic, and military aviation, specializing in maintenance, modifications, avionics, interiors, and paint. Discover more at summit-aviation.com. Thanks to our sponsor, Traca Systems. With over 25 years delivering groundbreaking searchlights, stabilized EOIR cameras, mission mapping, and downlinking solutions, Traca products improve situational clarity and coordination with ground crews, increasing mission safety and effectiveness. Visit tracasystems.com. See clearly, act decisively.
Thank you to our sponsor, Rotorcraft Support. Rotorcraft Support. From the hangar floor to the flight line, we've spent 40 years caring for the aircraft that communities rely on every day. Rotorcraft Support, where dedication meets decades of experience.
We hope you enjoyed this episode with Scott Hines and Alex Marti of the Fort Worth Police Department. No two stories are alike on how people get into airborne law enforcement aviation units. Scott's time in the OH-58D Kiowa conducting high-risk scouting missions was fascinating. Alex's story of striving to become a TFO and putting in the work to get the full-time position was inspiring. Be sure and join us for episode 2, where we learn a lot more about the Bell 505 Jet Ranger X and how to change the image and the culture of an aviation unit. Thank you for supporting the Hangar Z. This does not happen without MHM Publishing, Vertical Helicasts, our listeners, and our incredible sponsors. Stay safe. And we'll catch you for episode 2 on the Hangar Z podcast.